Hello, everybody, and welcome into a Thursday edition of the Lions Grid. I want to thank everybody for sticking with us here. I know usually we try to stay pretty consistent. Tuesdays, Sundays are typically when we like to do our episodes. But I think one of the great things, Jeffrey, about being a fan-run podcast, live show, whatever you want to call us, is that we're definitely not doing this as our main job. So it's nice that we have a community that supports us and allows us to sort of, when we need to take liberties and delay an episode, it's not the end of the world. So, it's one thing if you're putting on Monday Night Football and you have to suspend that until Wednesday, that doesn't work as good. But when you're just two best friends talking about football, you can take some liberties with your scheduling.
Yeah, at least until we start getting those sponsorship rolled in. Then we don't have to stay late at work for our other job. We can do this as our job.
Absolutely. If we transition to this being the moneymaker, if somehow this gets in front of the Lions or the NFL and they want to make that happen, I mean, I'm not going to say no. It'd be pretty cool to talk football full time is the main job, but certainly not the expectation here. We're just like I said, two best friends who enjoy the NFL, enjoy the Detroit Lions, Jeffrey. And right now, for the first time in our lives, it's a we shouldn't say the first time because last season was exciting, but we're kind of reaching new levels of excitement here with this Detroit Lions football team.
Yeah, we are. I'm not sure if we've even reached the height of our powers, but we are dancing on teams' graves on a week-to-week basis, which is kind of nuts. I didn't expect their margin of victory to be so big over this time. I mean, last year the games were more tight, for sure, and I think that's because we had some issues in the secondary. But now, just between last year and this year, we I feel like we can still only keep going up here.
Yeah, it feels like we've really started to step on the gas pedal too. Like at the beginning of the season, Jeffrey, we were excited. We thought it would be an advantage having the coaching staff back with these players for their third season. We knew that would give them an advantage, but it was kind of a slow start in those first couple of weeks. But now we're really cruising. Into your point, this is another game where we hung another 50 burger on a team. But this time, when we look at the box score, it actually, from a yardage perspective and everything, it looks like a game where a team scored 50 against their opponent. So without further ado, Jeffrey, I'll kick it over to this screen over here. We'll get those highlights of the starter rolling, and we'll talk about this 52-6 masterpiece we saw from the last Sunday. So, Jeffrey, we've already played two other AFC South teams. Started with the Titans. Most recently, before then, was the Texans. And then here against Jacksonville, they were the third team up, and they were our third victim.
Yeah, we set a franchise record, couple of franchise records. One for the most total yards, 645 total yards. And we've also, on a franchise level, and gave Jacksonville their biggest loss that they've ever had at the same time.
Yeah, I know. And I forget what the stat is, but I had seen something earlier in the week about how this is the second consecutive game against the Jacksonville Jaguars that we have just absolutely destroyed them. Like the point margin across those two games is 90 something to I think maybe just barely in the double digits. So we have been really, for whatever reason, we have particularly been angry with the Jacksonville Jaguars. I don't know if it's because Dan Campbell and team, there was that survey that you mentioned, I think last week, that the Athletic did, where they asked football fans about which franchise they would rather be, whether that would be the Jacksonville Jaguars or the Detroit Lions. And I think it was 60 some odd percent said they wanted to be, would prefer to be Jacksonville. Well, 2 years later, here we are, and Jacksonville is looking like it's going to be a regime change down there with Doug Peterson seemingly being a dead man walking. Because
I'm surprised he wasn't let go on Monday, to be honest with you.
At this point, I can only assume they're trying to just ride it out to the end of the season. Because with him making it through Monday, after that beatdown. I mean, I know he didn't have Trevor Lawrence in. It was Mac Jones starting, but it did not look good at all.
And I think it's going to continue to be Mac Jones here for a bit because Trevor Lawrence is going to be out for the long term, I think. And I mean, why come back to this? If he's your franchise guy, if you still believe in him as as a as the team's quarterback, it's almost like maybe we punt again on another season, which just I don't know, it just sucks if as far as like their luck, like between kind of the Urban Meyer.
Mm.
Before that, they had that really good year with Bortles as their quarterback, where they were one win away. But yeah, ever since then, it's just been a comedy of errors. And uh, Trevor Lawrence has had so many offensive coordinators at this point. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know how you could like be successful going through any of that.
Yeah, it hasn't been a advantageous position at all. So it's been difficult for the Jaguars, and it doesn't look like it's going to get any better, right? Because who's going to really want to take this coaching job? I think at one point in time, Trevor Lawrence was looked at as one of the next up and coming starters in the NFL, but after the last couple of seasons, it definitely feels like he has really struggled to live up to that hype. Like he was supposed to last season take the step forward. He wasn't really able to do so, and then this season it's been disappointing as well. So and he's locked in there. He got that bag, so he's paid, he's locked in. And so when you're looking to bring in a new head coach, uh, for the most part, I think a lot of your head coaching candidates do ultimately choose to take jobs because it is definitely a rarefied air to be offered an NFL job. Like regardless of the organization you're going into, like reaching the point that you're getting an offer to become the head coach of an NFL team is a big deal.
Yeah,
And so most
there's only
people,
32 of those positions. So
yeah, so most people when they get that opportunity, they do take it. Ben Johnson has been like one of the only guys who's refused, saying, "Hey, I think I am going to be, I can be a head coach, but I'm waiting for the right position because which I think is a interesting way to look at it because if you are only going to get one shot at being a head coach, waiting for that right situation, that right organization, and not sort of taking that chance too early." That may end up ultimately paying off for Ben Johnson down the road. Because if you look, I know like a lot of the coaches that we'll take a look at in our hot butts and the coaches that have already been let go. If you look at some of the years, I know I forget which season that was, but like the coaching class that includes Dennis Allen and Brian Dabble and like a lot of the other guys, they already have like 5 out of 10 coaches that were part of that coaching class fired, and then like there's another 3 that are like on the hot butts list. So it's not like just because you get a job offer, it's certainly to Ben Johnson's point, the majority of the coaches that get hired are gone within 3 years.
yeah,
So
yeah. Unless you're an organization that's historically been slow to kind of either react or get rid of things when they probably should be gotten rid of, um, they don't give a lot of time for these coaches to turn it around. I mean, I think the Lions did it right as far as like giving Dan Campbell this entire time. I feel like many organizations, as far as like at least our new-ish leadership, right? At least after those first couple of years, I feel like they panic and get rid of them. But like Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell have like saw this entire rebuild through, and now we're seeing kind of them reaching the height of their powers. And it's pretty
yeah,
cool.
there to be fair, even for Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes, there were like I do remember in year one there were definitely some rumblings about is this really the best path forward? There were definitely plenty of people out there, Jeffrey, who were saying let them cook, give them some time, let's see what happens. But there were definitely also some voices out there. Of course, it is also a little bit different too when you're talking about a franchise like the Detroit Lions, who have historically struggled the way the Lions have. And of course, we had also traded away the best quarterback we ever had in franchise history in Matthew Stafford. So that was, there were a lot of other factors in there, but at very times, yeah, I mean, it's kind of has to be like the ideal situation is what's happening with the Commanders, where it's not a full tear down rebuild from the studs. It's more of a retooling with the roster you have, and being able to do that quickly, I think is really what helps coaches be successful at this point in time. Cause there really isn't, I think an appetite for most of these franchises just to be bad.
Yeah.
So even though you're taking over, you are on it's already on the tick like the moment you take that head coaching job. So thankfully the Lions here have been able to ramp things up quickly, and this game, Jeffrey, it definitely seemed like just everything was clicking. Man, the offense looked good. The defense looked good. The one bad thing I can say about this game is that we lost Alex Anzalone to
Yep.
a forearm fracture. And, it's surprising. We got the win. That injury happened. And for the first time ever, we're now favored to win the Super Bowl. Incredible stuff there for the Detroit Lions.
Yeah.
But I think for the most part, this team has done a great job of stepping up. And I'm not even going to quote that stupid Patriots motto. I'm not even going there, but they've done a great job of rising to the challenge. Like the guys who are coming in to replace these players have done a great job. But I do start to wonder, because Alex Anzalone, I think he is a guy who very much embodies like what it means to be a part of this Detroit Lions culture. He is that guy that goes out there and he is going to do everything in his power to help this team get a win every Sunday. Like, and his play has been pretty. I mean, it hasn't been like the best in the NFL at his position, but he's been very dependable for us. And so losing him and losing that sort of leadership and things like that, I think this one hurts a little bit more. We're already down Aiden Hutchinson. So we're some of those guys on the defensive side of the ball that are really, I think, it hurts. Obviously you're losing his production, but I think the bigger loss when it comes to Anzalone is going to be having his leadership in that what he brings to the team from like an effort standpoint and things like that.
Yeah, I agree. He's definitely a spark plug for the defense, and he was the green dot bearer as far as who's got the key in on the defensive calls on the field. But I will say though, he could potentially come back if we do make it to the Super Bowl that far, potentially. And we get to actually see Jack Campbell take over as the green dot. And I know he's not been the flashiest of our like new like kind of crop of young talent, but I think he made a lot of strides like slowly and kind of quietly over this past year. So I'm actually, it sucks about Anzalone, but I am excited to see what Jack Campbell brings to the table, him being the guy now.
Yeah, it reminds me of the Optimus Prime quote from the first Transformers movie about like fate rarely calls upon us at a time of our choosing. Like, it certainly would prefer that Anzalone isn't injured, but I definitely am excited, to your point, to see what Jack Campbell can do. He has played well in what we've seen during his time with the Lions. It hasn't been spectacular, but now given this opportunity to really step into the spotlight with this defense, it's going to be interesting to see what he can do and what he can contribute to the team, especially with them having such expectations on them now. With the Kansas City Chiefs getting their first loss of the season, Jeff, now we're 9-1. Kansas City's 9-1. We're right there, tied with the best record in the NFL. And a lot of the national media, the people out there, have us as their top team in their power rankings. So, I mean, it's some pretty lofty expectations on this team. And as mentioned, for the first time in franchise history, we're favored to win the Super Bowl. So this is like I said earlier in the show, this is kind of new, strange territory for the Lions.
Yeah, and we're showing that we can win in multiple ways. It was a big bounce back for Jared Goff from last week, and the pick show that was. Although I don't think all of those were on him, but definitely it affected the play and the whole flow of the game. But yeah, just a big bounce back, and we've won the close ones. We're now starting to do what a hallmark of a good team is just beat up on the bad teams. So. Yeah, hopefully we can keep it up, and hopefully we can maybe avoid a major injury kind of rash in the middle and not have to be the 49ers of the North with like half the hospital room.
Yeah, we've definitely had enough injuries already this season where it's like, man, I don't know where the breaking point is, but I don't want to keep like inching towards it. Like, we don't need to just keep removing guys until we find it. Like, if we can stay healthy and keep the squad we have going, that would certainly make me happy. All right, Jeffrey. Well, we'll take a look here at the box score. And as you mentioned, Jeffrey, 645 total yards for the Lions in this game. And as I said earlier, this is definitely the first game of these points of the games where we blew the other team out, where it really does look like in the box score we blew them out. 645 total yards, 449 passing, 196 on the ground, 8.5 yards per
It's like
play.
they sent an FCS team up here to play us.
Yeah, we just blew them out. Took that tune-up game and had no reservations about running up the score against them. Showed absolutely no mercy. As mentioned, Jacksonville is kind of in a weird place, and we did not care. They were our opponent,
Right
and
now.
unfortunately, they had to feel the wrath. And then again, just continued here.
We held the ball for almost 40 minutes.
Yeah, it's crazy. No turnovers, so
Yeah.
especially after the turnover fest that was last week, doing a much better job of taking care of the ball here against Jacksonville. Just a solid performance from the Lions, and I think one of the better performances. I mean, obviously not the strongest opponent, but I still think it was one of the better performances of Week 11 as we took them down there. So, all right, Jeffrey. Well, that'll do it right now for the Jaguars and the Lions. We'll, of course, talk about them in a moment as we start to grind the grid. And without further ado, Jeffrey, let's take a look back at the rest of the games in Week 11. And we'll start things off here with Thursday Night Football. And I'll kick it over to you, Jeffrey, to talk about this NFC East matchup.
Yeah, so the Commanders and the Eagles go at it in Philadelphia. We got to see kind of Washington with their division foe here kind of get into trying to kind of at least kind of try to shake out what's going on in the NFC East with Dallas just in free fall and the Giants nowhere to be seen kind of thing. So this is kind of the big one for that division. The Eagles pulled it out 26-18. I think it was pretty clear on the Washington side. It's been fairly clear that Jaden Daniels' injury has definitely affected his play. Cliff Kingsbury kind of alluded to that as much in his talking with the media kind of thing. Like they weren't necessarily able to call everything they wanted to kind of thing. But yeah, I think on the other side, Philadelphia did not start scoring until the fourth quarter. They only scored 6 points up until then. Then they exploded with just pretty much Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley putting them on their backs to do so. And I think as far as talking MVP kind of category, and what do you think about Saquon Barkley kind of being thrown up there as like maybe we can like leapfrog some of these quarterbacks and give this MVP to a different skill position?
Yeah, I think that's of course a hard thing to do just because of how much I feel like the MVP race is favored towards QBs, especially with how well you have players like Lamar Jackson playing and things like that. Like he definitely seems to be the engine that makes the Ravens go. But Saquon certainly has been, I think, both the performance that he and Derrick Henry, and we talked about this in an earlier episode this season too, Jeffrey. I think they are kind of helping reset the running back market by the performance they're having. Obviously finding a bell cow running back that can be that guy that you're handing the ball off to 30 plus times a game is still rarefied. And of course, the Lions are finding success having the two-headed monster with Montgomery and Gibbs, but Henry and Barkley are still showing that there are guys out there that can be that featured back, and that they should be compensated accordingly. So I think what's really painful is the fact that the Giants have to watch all this unfold inside their division. Decided to pay Danny Dimes, who has now been benched for Tommy Cutlets, and they decided not to pay Saquon, and he's now with the Eagles, helping them seemingly guide them to the playoffs, whether that be
like not even just on their team, like destroying them and other teams and the league kind of thing, and just output and craziness as far as his play, which is
it's
with Daniel Jones, and we can get to this more when we get to we cover that game, but with Daniel Jones being now the third string quarterback, demoted 2 bench slots, I mean it's not looking this going away from Saquon Barkley is just looking worse and worse for the Giants.
Yeah, the better he and the Eagles look, the worse it is for the Giants, which is unfortunate because they're not having good times. They're not having good times there. All right, Jeffrey, why don't you talk to us about this AFC matchup between the Raiders and the Dolphins?
So yeah, we have Tua out here throwing 3 touchdowns, 288 yards, no picks. Um, Miami beat the Raiders 34-19. It's hard to win when one you're the Raiders just in general, but you just they're poorly coached. They are lacking talent, and Miami really has not shown us like kind of the firepower that they had last year. But we're
Mhm.
starting to see. I guess I'm starting to see it bubble up here, and they kind of took care of business here with the Raiders.
Yeah, they have a very slim margin for error, and so getting a win here against a bad team certainly helps them out. The Dolphins improved to 4-6, so good stuff there. Gardner Minshew, of course, back in the starting role for the Raiders, Jeffrey. And then one thing, Jeffrey, that I wanted to bring up, Brock Bowers, man, he's been having a solid year here for the Raiders, a historic year. Are you more impressed with what Bowers is doing with the Raiders, given the team he has around him and the situation, than what Sam Laporta was able to do with the Lions last season?
That's interesting because and I'll admit I've not seen a lot of Raiders football. I
Mhm.
mean, typically they're not even out in the red zone because they're never there. But based on me not seeing it, a lot of and then kind of based on what I saw with Laporta last year, like not only was Laporta production wise as far as like yards, catches was doing well, we were having him run all kinds of like complicated routes, complicated offensive like stunts and blocks, and he was doing things that like rookies don't usually get down until
Mhm.
they're at least a season, like his experience kind of thing versus and how he looked at such a with such little NFL experience was pretty crazy. Now, and like I said, I have not seen the Raiders play too much, but is this a case with Brock Bowers just being a freak of nature kind of thing? Because Laporta is not, I would say.
Mhm.
So
It's a great question, and so I think it's tough to say, and it'll be interesting to see how he finishes the season. Bowers does. Of course, he's bounced between the two quarterbacks, which I think does make it impressive. Like again, I think situation wise, I think it was kind of weird too that they had, drafted Brock after they had drafted Myers last season out of Notre Dame. So investing two early picks in tight ends, but it's going to be interesting to see. He's definitely having a great year. So it looks like he's going to be a good player for them for years to come. But certainly interesting. And I thought, Sam Laporte, of course, last season had a record rookie year, but it seems like Brock Bowers is on track to maybe to break that. So I think especially impressive given the situation. Yeah.
yeah, he's just one of their only bright spots that they have. I mean, Gardner Minshew has been. Antonio Pierce is just puts him out there just to bench him, kind
Mhm.
of thing. Um, I, I think we'll talk about more of this in our hot butt section, but like, I think we could see another dead man walking here in Vegas.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And then Jeffrey, here, we were talking about this a little bit before the show. Kind of surprising here. There have been two head coaches who've been fired so far. Our S tier, if you will, of the hot butt section, and the Saints, of course, letting Dennis Allen go. Surprising, the Jets let their head coach go, and it has not gone well. The Saints 2-0 now, Jeffrey, without Dennis Allen on the sideline.
Yeah, it's Darren the Rizzler, Darren Rizzi. He um, the team's kind of rallied around him, which is pretty surprising given how like I guess it seemed like there was a lot of discontent in the locker room, a lot of things being like get put out to the media, players directly to social media, kind of shit talking things that are going on, and Brad Allen kind of thing. But once he was gone, they look so much better. Now they did, Rizzy. It could be benefiting from the Basachi bump kind of thing with
Mhm.
like head coaches. They gotta get when there's a shift. There's typically kind of like a, I guess, I mean, it could be correlated, it could not be, but like there's typically a,
Mhm.
a jump in like wins, people actually trying, which is pretty crazy.
Mhm.
But we saw this here, and really, I mean, it was the Taysom Hill show this weekend. Uh, he he oh, 138 yards on 7 attempts. On
Mm.
this is rushing, 3 touchdowns. he, he did throw a pick, which I'll say, of his blemishes he's got there. But yeah, the New Orleans Saints are feeling it here, and it's kind of surprising because I thought the Browns would at least play a little better on defense, but they couldn't handle all the weapons with them being thrown out there.
Yeah, as good as the AFC North has looked, the Browns continue to struggle there, and of course, not necessarily a surprise given their issues with quarterback and on the offensive side of things. And then for the Saints, the Taysom Hill. Have you heard about that fantasy football league, Jeffrey, that has the Taysom Hill rule, where
No,
they almost play like musical chairs with Taysom Hill, but every manager has to start him at tight end one week, and they
that's
cycle him through the
awesome.
league. And so,
That's
because
awesome.
sooner or later he's going to go off and have himself a game.
The
So it's
Taysom Hill lottery.
yeah, but it's kind of like just trying to guess which week it's going to be so that you can have him in on your roster and see how it goes. But it's yeah, it's pretty cool rule that I recently heard of.
Yeah, that's awesome. We might want to implement something like that in our league. I don't know. We'll have to talk after the show, but
Just create a Lions grid and have it be a very meme filled fantasy football league.
I'd be down with that for sure. Did you know Kadarius Toney plays for the Saints?
I did. Are you sure he plays for the Saints? Does he? I think he plays for the Browns, doesn't he? Or is he with the Saints now?
Oh, I'm sorry. Did you know that he plays with the Browns? I was looking at the Saints thing and looking at his name. Did you? I did not know that. But he
I do
shows up here in
remember
the
when
stat sheet.
he got canned by the Chiefs. I did see that they signed him to the practice squad. I didn't know that he had made his way up to the full time roster though.
Yeah, he's got a rushing attempt for -7 yards. That was his day.
That was his contribution.
That was the contribution. So
That's quality.
he
That's a good performance. That's a good day.
did not catch a pass. So I don't know if he didn't get any targets. I was going to say, did he drop them? But yeah, on the other side, I mean, Jameis Winston's doing more to move them downfield than Deshaun Watson would have ever done based on what we saw out of him early in the season. He threw for 395 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's a Jameis Winston game, right? He'll have his high highs, but his lows are just baffling. But at least they're moving. At least they're moving the ball a little bit better. But yeah, just overall, Nick Chubb doesn't look like himself. He's
Yeah,
on
he's
his
definitely been
last
struggling.
year on his contract, so we'll see what happens with this with this team and kind of what they're going to do going forward, because this is clearly a lost year for them.
Yeah, definitely, especially in again in an AFC North that is sort of loaded with having the Steelers and the Ravens in there, and then of course the best team, well, one of the better teams in the division also is the Bengals. Of course, they aren't seeing the results
Yep.
that they of course would be looking for.
Despite some MVP level play from their quarterback.
Yeah, absolutely. Not speaking of MVP level play from a quarterback, Jeffrey, we do have that other team that has already fired their head coach this season. Why don't you talk to us about this most recent loss for the Jets?
Yeah, it was a 1-point loss this time for the Jets at home. Anthony Richardson coming back here after being benched, have himself looking good continuously here as far as just willing this team. I mean, they look just so much more dynamic than they did with Flacco, and which is surprising because kind of going away from Anthony Richardson, he wasn't looking so great either. But they clearly still believe in him, which makes the whole first benching like maybe was it more of like a, hey, you can't tap yourself out kind
Yeah,
of
like a
thing?
disciplinary type deal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, that, he was 20 for 30, 272 yards, one touchdown. He Jonathan Taylor, not a very efficient day for him. 24 carries for only 57 yards. But speaking of inefficient, we have Aaron Rodgers over here, 22 for 29 for 184 yards. Man,
Mm.
that's awful.
It reminds me of some of those Eli Manning numbers. We had that. You took him that 1 year in fantasy football when we had the points per
Completion.
completion on.
He's just like
Such
he complete
bullshit.
45 passes and they only have like 150 yards. I'd score like
Have 60
1,000 points.
points in fantasy football, and you're just like, what is this? He didn't even do anything.
Yeah,
Just
I
dinking and
mean,
dumping.
at the very least, he didn't have any picks, and he did throw 2 touchdowns. But just a heartbreaking loss for them. Um, there's talks and rumors bubbling about what's going on in in kind of the background. Woody Johnson apparently wanted to bench him. Eh, If this stuff's coming out in the media from both sides, it's like or the locker room one is cooked, and
Mhm.
that the whole front office is cooked as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if we um, see them going away from Aaron Rodgers. They already fired their GM
Mhm.
this past week. So yeah,
Joe Douglas was let go. Yep.
yep, Joe Douglas is gone. Which I if you're gonna do a regime change like that, you typically don't see a head coach being fired like a 3 games into the season, 4 games into the season, when you're 1 game away from the lead in the division. And
Yep.
then, like, 5 to 6 weeks later, you fire your GM. I don't know, man. It's not good. Like I said, I think their locker room is cooked, and I think their front office is cooked. So I wouldn't be surprised if there was an actual blowing up of the team this year.
Yeah, they are certainly a clown show there, and not good things happening there in New York for either team. It's not good for the Jets. It's not good for the Giants. So
Yeah.
both of them are struggling pretty hard. And then Jeffrey, one of the teams in the NFC North, and for the most part, we continue as a division to play very well. The Vikings trying to keep pace with us, and they do so here. They, of course, were taking on Tennessee Titans in Tennessee. 23-13, the final score there. Sam Darnold had 2 touchdowns in this game. Justin Jefferson didn't have a touchdown, but he also had 81 yards on 6 receptions. We did see Jordan Addison get a touchdown. Cam Akers caught one as well. So, then I think he's a rookie quarterback there, but they're John Parker Romo, the guy who made the debut last week in front of Tony Romo, continues
Oh
to kick
yeah,
well. So,
brother.
uh, they continue to look good. Will Levis, of course, got his second start back as the starting quarterback for the Titans. He did have 1 interception in this game, but he did throw for 295 yards and a touchdown. So not his worst performance. Nick Westbrook Aiken, I doubt anybody had him
Akino?
in
I
their
think it's Akino.
starting. Yeah. Yeah, I doubt anyone had him starting in fantasy football, but if you did, he had 2 receptions for 117 yards
Ooh,
and a tutty. So
went
that's
off.
if you had him in, you had yourself a good day because those are some points. But not really surprising here. Vikings are 8-2. Titans are now 2-8. Two teams heading in different directions, and pretty easy victory here for the Vikings.
Yeah, I didn't expect Titans to do us a favor with kind of keeping the Vikings down. But yeah, it's I do think that they do get at least the opportunity this season to see what Will Levis is made of.
Mhm.
Yes, I know he had a very volatile start after such a great start with the mayonnaise commercials. He kind of
Mhm.
went kind of mayonnaise out on the field, but uh, like you said, he looks a lot better than pre-injury. So, you get a good look at that. I mean, he has physical tools here, right? You're already headed towards probably a top 5 pick, so a really good draft pick coming your way. So they've got options. So. It does suck that you're kind of looking to next year here at the end of November. At the end of November, but yeah, it kind of tracks.
As Lions fans certainly can that resonates with us. We understand the
Yeah,
unfortunate
usually we're done like
situation.
by Halloween.
Yeah, so we understand that unfortunateness of having to look forward to the next season when you're only like halfway through the regular season. But hey, you know there is hope. Sometimes you get the right combo of coach and GM in there, and things turn around. Man, they turn around. Sticking in the NFC North here, Jeffrey, we had a matchup between the Packers and the Bears,
Ooh,
and
yeah.
the Bears, Jeffrey, we talked about it, are the only team in the NFC North without a winning record, and this 20-19 loss to the Packers dropped them now 2 games below 500. The Packers getting the victory here in the fourth quarter with a touchdown run with 2 minutes and 59 seconds left in this game by Jordan Love. And Jordan Love, he had been looking a little Brett Favre-esque recently, Jeffrey, maybe even a little Will Levis left with some questionable turnovers. But he has, here in recent weeks, he did have an interception in this game, but the Bears defense, despite all the issues with their offense, is very talented. And so, having to pick against them isn't a huge deal. But he has looked much better, Jordan Love has in recent weeks here. So it's going to be interesting to see. Obviously, the Lions have one more game against the Packers. So it's going to be interesting to see how we match up with him if he isn't just, if that groin injury is healed and he isn't just giving out the ball like it's a Halloween and it's trick or treat. On the other side of things, Jeffrey, of course, we haven't played the Bears yet at all. This was the Bears' first NFC North matchup game of the season. They are playing here in Week 12. They're playing the Vikings. So going to see how they stack up against them. And then, of course, we play them. When do we first play them? Did we play them on? We're playing them Thanksgiving. So hopefully we get to celebrate. It'll be. I mean, I guess a question for you, Jeffrey. If the Lions, would you take a Lions Super Bowl appearance if it meant they had to take a loss to the Bears on Thanksgiving?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Especially because we've not been doing good on Thanksgiving, especially like recent history. So it'd be great to get out on national TV and just like destroy somebody in front of the national audience there. They have to watch the shit show in Dallas later at night. They might as well get some good football earlier in the day. But yeah, it's tough for the Bears because Caleb Williams got them in a position to win the game at the end of the game, and kicker missed it, hitting it up on the goalposts. So, oh no, I'm sorry, it was blocked. It was blocked by one of the interior defenders there, and it's just it's their team. What's that? I'm sorry.
I was going to say, one of the things we've complained about recently, Jeffrey, is the non-consistent enforcement of rules. And it feels like on that block, you brought up that block kick. As far as I remember, you're not supposed to line up in front of the long snapper. You're not supposed to hit them. You're not supposed to touch them. I'm not aware of there being a rule change, but long snappers are starting to get mugged again out there in plays, and teams are just charging up the middle to make blocks. So, I don't know if something did change in the rules or if just
I don't think it did. I just think it's just more inconsistency with how.
And that's frustrating to me. If it is just inconsistency, that's
I think it is just more NFL consistency. Like we're seeing that. We're seeing the no face mask calls kind of thing on quarterbacks being tackled, or really anybody being tackled. A lot of legal hands to the face.
But if you have your offensive lineman run too far away from the line of scrimmage, flag.
Yeah. So it's
illegal man downfield. Okay.
It's frustrating.
That's definitely the problem with the league. Not just we're going to run over the long snapper and block all these kicks.
Let's destroy the center right after he snaps the ball.
Yep. And then, of course, last up in the NFC North, Jeffrey, we played host to the Jacksonville Jaguars. 52-6 victory there. We already talked a lot about this victory for the Lions as they improved to 9-1, keeping our place. And we'll take a look at the King in the North rankings here in a moment. But at 9-1, we are not only tied for the best record in the NFL, but of course the best record in the NFC North. All right, Jeffrey, your lock of the week.
Yes, Matty Stafford came through for me. He has never thrown a touchdown pass in Gillette Stadium in his entire career. He got 4 on Sunday. It's a pretty dangerous combo, Puka Nakua and Cooper Kupp out there, especially when they're both out there. They're both healthy. Um, both of them going over 100 yards, 3 touchdowns between them. Kyron Williams is kind of still making an impact, kind of getting better and better every week. But yeah, it's I'm glad I'm back in the win column here because it's been a rough kind of go. But yeah, I kind of just banked on the Patriots just not having enough talent to match up, and like I had mentioned in the last episode, I think coaching is definitely a like a +1 for the Rams over the Patriots, and I think it showed. And Matt Stafford, and if he's got weapons and he's got a decent scheme behind him with McVay, I mean they're competing for their division as well. So it's
They're definitely in the mix, and Matt Stafford's still showing that he is one of the better QBs in the NFL. So solid stuff there. In the AFC North, Jeffrey, we had a matchup between 2 teams competing for the top of that division. Russell Wilson and the Steelers do get the win there, 18-16. I think that's 4 wins in a row for Russell Wilson since taking over as the starting QB there for the Steelers.
Man, he's smelting up a storm down there.
Yeah, he did have 1 interception that made you go, "What is going on?" When he threw it, but they didn't have any touchdowns in this game, Jeffrey. But good old Chris Boswell was just automatic. Drilled his 6 field goals, and they get out of there, or they defend, I guess, the home against the Ravens. And this was a game where Lamar Jackson didn't, it again goes to show like that Lamar Jackson kind of has to lift this team up and sort of will them on to victory. He didn't have a bad game, Jeffrey. He was 16-33 for 207 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. But like he has to have like MVP numbers every week, especially when they're playing good teams like the Steelers to get that win. So it does feel like this is almost, even though it wasn't a game where he had the stats to say that he should be the MVP of the league this season, it felt like a game that sort of showed that he is the most valuable player for the Ravens.
Yeah, definitely, especially with their defense, especially on the passing defense side, just being absolutely horrid. You're right. I think as far as like pound for pound, who is the one dragging some of these teams? It's definitely Lamar Jackson, because around him, I mean, you've got the offense is their kind of their best unit, and everything else, like even down to the kicker, Justin Tucker's not doing well, so they're not getting their margins as far as getting points when they need it, kind of thing. And you're in a situation.
Did you see that he is no longer no longer has the career high for field goal accuracy after his miss?
Yeah, I saw that.
It's now Eddie Pinero or something.
Pinero's okay, gotcha. Okay,
and he's kicked a whole lot less field goals than Justin Tucker has. But
yeah, and you're in a tough situation too, because he is a legend, right? As far as like he is the greatest kicker that has ever kicked in the NFL. So like, do you bench the guy? Do you let him figure it out and give him confidence by giving him opportunities? But at that point, are you costing the team? So they're kind of in a delicate situation here, especially if they're, it'd be one thing if the team was struggling, but like they are competing for the division and the margins are pretty small, and being able to have your kicker be reliable is, something that they frankly have not had to deal with in a long time.
Yeah, he's been automatic, and certainly a struggle. It's a weird thing for them to get used to here, but strong win for the Steelers. It helps them solidify the first place there in the AFC North, and it's going to be interesting to see riding that 5-game heater there. So even before Russell Wilson took over as the starting quarterback, Steelers are making a case that that defense, Mike Tomlin, it's impressive, the streak they've been on. Then, Jeffrey, we had an NFC West matchup here between the Seattle Seahawks and the San Francisco 49ers. This was Christian McCaffrey's second game back for the 49ers, but they are now on a one-game losing streak here as they go down to the Seahawks, and it is a 20-17 victory here. Geno Smith being able to get that last second, not last second. It was no, it wasn't the last seconds. It was the 12-second mark. Okay, I was about to say I thought it was really close towards the end of the game. 12 seconds left. He had the 13-yard scramble to take the lead, and with that, the Seahawks bouncing the rival 49ers there. And if I take a look here, I believe that the Cardinals are still in first place. They are in the NFC West at 6-4. But everybody else then now, Rams, Seahawks, and Niners, all 5-5. So a very close race there in the NFC West.
Very competitive. And the Niners are hurting as far as the injury list. Seems like Brock Purdy is now hurt with a shoulder issue. They are just they're not as sharp as they were last year. And I think we're starting to see a lot of slowing down of George Kittle, although he's having, when he does play, he can play, but he's not about to put the offense on his back. They don't have Ayuk. Debo has not been playing as well as he could. Jawan Jennings is a bright spot, right? He's been playing pretty well, but it's going to be difficult. And I don't doubt that they could turn it around, especially with McCaffrey coming back in and kind of getting back into the mix kind of thing. And, it just takes a game or two to get, right kind of thing, especially if you're trying to fix issues here in the midseason. Yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting race over there. I think it's going to come down to a few games at the end of the season.
Yeah, and I know Christian McCaffrey is there. Obviously, he's the guy there in the backfield, right? And having him back is a lift. But I am kind of surprised that they have almost completely moved on from Jordan Mason because he did a good job in relief. He, at one point in time, he was leading the league in rushing yards in replacement for CMC. So the fact that he's back and now I think he's only got 5 touches in this game against the Seahawks, especially with how you can move McCaffrey around between running him in the slot as a receiver and having him in the backfield. You would think there would be some way that they could keep Jordan Mason at least a little bit more involved in this offense, considering how well he played for them early in the season. But they kind of seem like they're no, we don't need him anymore. Especially to your point, Jeffrey, when they are kind of struggling to find weapons to be effective on offense. It kind of seems weird that they have a guy who performed well for them early in the season, and now they're no, we don't need you anymore. We're just not gonna have you involved.
Yeah, it's certainly it's something to watch out there because they coming in, it was the 49ers were one of the favorites here for the conference and sitting at 500 here and on November 21st. It's definitely landscape's changed. Go Cardinals.
It is a changing of the guard there in the NFC West. And then, Jeffrey, for my lock of the week, I took them the previous week, or I guess I started my losing streak by going with the Broncos. It's only fitting that I end that losing streak for my locks of the week by going with the Broncos. And they get a impressive victory here against the Atlanta Falcons. And, Jeffrey, we were talking about this game, too, before the show. Obviously, we have an interest in Captain Kirk, being a Michigan State grad. But the Falcons had every opportunity to really stake a claim down there in the NFC South, and they just seem to be not interested in that opportunity at all. And the Broncos, they're certainly fighting to establish themselves. And Bo Nix has been playing out of his mind here, Jeffrey. And I think you talked earlier about Jaden Daniels and the injury that's kind of limiting him. And I think earlier in the season, he was kind of the runaway candidate for Offensive Rookie of the Year. But Bo Nix is coming on strong here
I had a hunch, and I think many people were like, Bo Nix is a pretty good fit for Sean Payton and the kind of offense he likes to run. He's got this kind of the traits. They compared him to like a diet Drew Brees, but I think he's got a little bit more sugar in there uh, for being compared to a diet Drew Brees. But yeah, he won the offensive player of the week this week. He pretty sure he's about to or has won his second straight rookie of the week. Also the FedEx ground player of the week, which, if you're on the ground doing that and you're a quarterback,
Mhm.
you're cooking. So yeah, it's good times for those guys up there in Mile High.
Yeah, and we'll certainly talk more about the Falcons when we get to our chumps of the week because Jeffrey, uh, just underperforming, and another organization, even beyond just what happened here this week to the Broncos. They invested their first round draft pick in Michael Penix Jr. Instead of taking somebody that could potentially help this team this season, and it just feels like they have all the opportunity in the world right now to win this division, especially with the injuries that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are dealing with. But it just the results aren't there on the field, so just not working out for them. And then Jeffrey, the
Finally, it
moment
happened.
we've been waiting
It's
for.
happened.
The Buffalo Bills doing the unthinkable, getting the victory against the Kansas City Chiefs here. And I think moving up on people's MVP lists to help get them this victory, Josh Allen. It wasn't an overly impressive day stat wise. He did have one touchdown through the air. He had one running, but I think overall, watching him in that game was certainly a big part of why they were able to get that victory against Patty Mahomes and team. And James Cook also contributed early on in the first and second quarter. He kind of disappeared in the second quarter. It seemed like the Kansas City defense was able to make adjustments at halftime and kind of shut down that rushing attack. But the Bills Mafia get to celebrate that victory against the Kansas City Chiefs. Although, Jeffrey, I do wonder if these two teams meet in the playoffs and Kansas City gets the win. I would imagine Bills fans would definitely trade the regular season victory for that postseason victory. But
Oh yeah.
the first step to beating them in the postseason is, and having that belief you can do it, is beating them in the regular season. So,
Right, which the Bills have had their number in the regular season. So,
mhm.
Josh Allen, he said he's like, we'll probably see these guys again. We've got a regular season win against them is great, but we've got other business to attend to, which spooks me out because I think I've said this a few times. I don't want a Lions Bills Super Bowl. That's just too spooky for me. That's just too spooky.
Just not the matchup you want to see.
No.
I understand. And it's going to be interesting for the Kansas City Chiefs. Isaiah Pachenko should be coming off of IR here shortly. Kareem Hunt has done a great job for them in relief. He only had, I think, like 60 yards in this game rushing, but still, he's holding down the fort quite well. But
He gets 4 yards pretty much every time. Only 4 yards.
but getting a Pachenko back might give them a little bit of a lift there. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. And then, Jeffrey, 2 games left in this week. Why don't you talk to us about the Sunday night football matchup between Harbaugh and the Bengals?
Yeah, another heartbreaker for Joey B, 34-27. Speaking of MVP level play, he is doing literally everything he possibly can in these games, but his team is letting him down. Defense sucks. Kicker is missing kicks. Evan McPherson, who was doing so good last year and kind of early in the it's just not working out. I think that there might be some consideration for putting him in an MVP category, but I think the biggest detractor to that would be win total, right? He's playing this well, but it's not generating any wins. I don't know. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think it would almost have to be like the perfect storm. Like he'd have to be performing at like a record-breaking level in the losses to be able to take out somebody who is performing well and has the wins. Because that's kind of like, if you just look at it in a vacuum, I think certainly he is by far the most valuable player on the Bengals team. But if you look at that compared to like other teams where they are having success and the players having the numbers, I think that's where it gets hard. to sort of beat that person in the race. But he's playing fantastic. Him and Jamar Chase too. I mean, that might actually be the biggest deterrent for him actually winning the MVP is how well Jamar Chase is playing as well, because
Yeah, and
they are certainly a dynamic duo paired together. But like, if you take either of them and put them on another team, I think both of those teams are going to improve regardless of which player you're adding to them. So
yeah, even T. Higgins too, which is a
yeah, T Higgins played well as
interesting
well.
crux for them for this offseason. I don't think that they can pay Joey B all this money and have Jamar Chase and T. Higgins because both of them are going to command a big salary.
Yeah, the
So
Bengals are. I know it's a very interesting situation too with them with their ownership because they, their owner is the son of the guy who started the former coach. So he's like one of the only NFL owners that isn't like super wealthy on his own. He's only wealthy because he owns the team.
mhm.
And so he doesn't like they don't have the same type of the part that's part of the issue, right? Like when they have to pay the guaranteed money, they don't have like this huge war chest of money to go to in order to play the players. They're kind of like operating, they're like the NFL equivalent of living paycheck to paycheck. So
Which
they
is nuts because some of these guarantees, just with the signing bonuses, could probably end poverty in several states in the
Yeah,
in the United
exactly. But
States.
for their case,
Yeah.
some of those guarantees and stuff like that can make them go like they just can't afford it. They can't do them. That's part of the issue they're having uh Jamar Chase Jamar Chase. They just don't like at some point in time like there's only so much money they can give him guaranteed because they just don't have the liquid assets to do it. So
Yeah.
it's a I think that's sort of a unique thing for the Bengals that I find, I'm not a big like finance person or anything like that, but I do find that interesting how that kind of influences what's going on there, especially as you point out when they have a lot of talented players that they're trying to figure out how they can keep them on retainer.
Yeah, and they traded for Khalil Herbert right before the deadline. He has not had he didn't actually have a touch this game. I
Mm.
don't think he played last week. So um, don't know what's going on there as far as their running game, which is almost non-existent. 22 attempts for 86 yards for Brown, which is that's not there's no Jameer Gibb numbers kind of thing. Uh, but on the other side though, Chargers keep on rolling.
Hmm.
I think Jim Harbaugh is a good coach. He's got these guys playing at a high level. I mean, he's pretty much playing with what Brandon Staley had, and they're just playing so much better because Brandon
Yep.
Staley sucked so much, especially on defense. I mean, these guys are playing really well. The Justin Herbert has been quietly doing pretty well, despite people kind of thinking that coming into the season that this would be like a 50 run per game team, just kind of like like a Mimi Harbaugh team, but
Mhm.
they're playing pretty good, and they are making some waves here in the AFC, and I think some other teams should watch out for that.
Yeah, the AFC West, I mean, you have both the Broncos and the Chargers right behind KC. So very interesting. I think both of those teams heading into the season, there weren't like high expectations for either of them, but so far through 11 weeks, both of those teams look like the real contenders. And Lad McConkey has been particularly a delight there for Chargers fans. And I do also find it funny that Jim Harbaugh took a bunch of John Harbaugh's old running backs, and they're kind of having a renaissance there, going from the Ravens to the Chargers.
They were vetted by family, man, so they're like, yeah, this guy knows what to do.
They
But though,
had,
shout out to J.K. Dobbins, though he's come back from so many
oh yeah,
injuries, devastating season-ending, possibly career-ending injuries, but he's back and he's rumbling 2 touchdowns today. He's had a good season all season.
yeah, he has. All right, Jeffrey, the last game from this week, Monday Night Football. What do you
Yeah,
got for
good
us?
thing it was Monday night, so the sun can't shine in those receivers' faces. But yeah, this one more of dancing on Jera's grave. Um, it's actually the most surprising thing I actually saw from this when I was kind of looking through stats and kind of preparing for this was that Cooper Rush in this 34-10 loss threw for 354 yards.
Mm,
You only score 10 points to go throwing for 354 yards. That's awful, man. Um, th- their running back room is almost non-existent. Ezekiel Elliott got himself a carry tonight. It's been all Dowdle, who they just picked up here as a rookie here in the season. But it's a good get right game for for the Houston Texans. After a couple of tough weeks here, they got to come out and play against a beleaguered team. Joe Mixon had himself a day, 20 attempts, 109 yards, 3 touchdowns. But a lot of that was just the Cowboys not being able to play defense, giving them the too small kind of look kind of thing, just feasting. But with Nico Collins back, I think it changes a lot of things for them.
Yeah, certainly looked like a better team. And of course, certainly, and just like we beat up on Jacksonville because they weren't a very good team, an opportunity here for the Texans to beat up on the Cowboys, who are certainly not a very good team. And it's going to be interesting to see how they can turn things around. Started to hear plenty of rumors again, hearing the Deion Sanders, Shador Sanders sort of combo, draft him as QB, or Shador Sanders draft him as the QB, and then have Deion come be the head coach and trade Dak somewhere. It's
Oh my God.
there's all that good stuff. I think Mike McCarthy is definitely a dead man walking, and so it's a mess for the Cowboys and for the Texans. Good on them for taking care of an opponent that they should beat, and helps get them a win and another step closer to their playoff run this postseason.
Of Dallas's 3 wins, none of them happened at home. They're getting just absolutely stomped in their own dojo. It's as someone who's a little salty from last year about Dallas. I've been enjoying watching this, and I've been enjoying watching Aaron Rodgers play. I don't like seeing people get hurt through injuries. I want the people I don't like to get their asses kicked on the field.
I feel you. I like the two that Jerry Jones gets to see it live and in color. The beatings.
I love all great. The camera pans to him, and he's just like dying in his, just dying on the inside.
Looks like Emperor Palpatine right before they blow up the Death Star. All right, Jeffrey. Moving on to our hot butt segment. Of course, our S tier, Jeffrey. Our 2 coaches that have already been removed. We talked about them when we were grinding the grid, but Robert Saleh, Dennis Allen, both are no longer with us in the head coaching ranks this season. And again, it's kind of been a tale of 2 stories. The Jets have not really shown any improvement since getting rid of Robert Saleh, but the Saints 2-0. So, hey, sometime we're 50-50 right now. Half the times it works, half the time it doesn't go. That's the head coach wasn't the problem. And then other places we talked about there being a lot of dead men walking. We can see we have 6 names here, or six head coaches currently that butts are a little warmer than the average bear. You got Brian Dabble, Antonio Pierce, Mike McCarthy, Doug Peterson, Zach Taylor, and Kevin Stefanski here. So Jeffrey, of these 6 coaches, which one do you think is the next do you think all of these guys can make it to the end of the season? Or do you think so. One of them gets let go before the end of the year?
I don't think so, because I thought Doug Peterson for sure was not coming back to Jacksonville from Detroit. So that I don't know. The Raiders fired their head coach in the middle of the season last season. I don't know if they're going to do that to Antonio Pierce, given that there was high expectations last year versus what's going on this year. Zach Taylor, I mean, that organization is typically pretty conservative when it comes to getting rid of coaches, making changes, that kind of thing. I mean, they stuck
Marvin Lewis.
Yep, for like 2 decades. So I think the most I don't think Jerry Jones will do it if he hasn't done it already, especially because he's also doesn't want to start Trey Lance, because there have been some calls to be like, why don't you see what Trey Lance, see what he's got, see if he's worth a look or a trade value. And he's like, I think Cooper Rush gives us the best chance to win. And I'm like, Well, I don't know, he threw for 354 yards, but dang, you got to turn those into some points. But I don't know. Even in this picture here, it looks like Mike McCarthy has a 1,000-yard stare. I could see Jerry Jones just finally being like, it's over kind of thing. But yeah, that would be my pick. I think it's going to be Mike McCarthy. If Doug Peterson's not gone yet, I'm going with Mike McCarthy.
Yeah, honestly, thinking about it, I think they probably all make it. To your point, if Doug Peterson hasn't been let go at this point, I really don't know what is going to make it so Shad Khan actually gets rid of him. So like during the season, so I think everybody makes it to the end. If I had to guess, like I think you're right, Zach Taylor and Antonio Pierce are probably your two coaches that are the most likely to be able to return to their team. With maybe Kevin Stefanski being the third. But then I think Doug Peterson, Mike McCarthy, and Brian Dabble, I think those three are all just dead men walking. I think they're just waiting until Black Monday at the end of the season, and then they're gonna be gone. So
they're giving Tommy Cutlets the tank commander job to take him home, baby.
Yeah, and if I was a not that I'm anywhere near on any NFL team's radar to be their head coach, but if I was a head coaching prospect and the Giants came up to me as an organization, the fact that they have decided to go with Tommy Cutlets as their starting quarterback, jumping him up from number 3 to number 1, makes me believe that, they're just trying to do it because he's the local New York kid and maybe it'll help them save a little bit of face with fans and get a little extra money this season. Like I look at that if I was a head coaching prospect and say that's not the organization for me. Like
yeah,
why they're not going with Drew Lock, I don't know. He's definitely more talented, and it'd be interesting to see what he could bring to the table for them. But the fact they're going with Tommy Cutlets is just, again, I not no disrespect to him. I think it's very impressive, like the story he has, and the idea of being like a kid that grew up in New York and being able to play for the Giants is pretty fantastic. So I think very, it's a great story, but at the same time, like I think Drew Lock has been your backup quarterback all season for like a reason. And so like the fact that you're now just deciding to go with Tommy Cutlets over him it doesn't feel right.
Yeah, I think the move is definitely financially charged. They don't want to have to pay any of the guarantees if Daniel Jones gets injured. So I think that's why they put them down to. I guess the players came out and said that like they didn't like that decision. It was kind of disrespectful because it was all about money, kind of thing. But I guess putting him in third gives him no chance to be in the game at all, even if Tommy DeVito.
It's Tommy DeVito.
It's Tommy DeVito.
Yeah, Tommy Cutlets is just his nickname.
I'm like, what is his? His name's actually Cutlets, isn't it? But I agree.
All righty then, Jeffrey. And then switching to our Kings of the North here, of course, the Lions still reigning supreme from the top of the throne, 9-1, Jeffrey. But despite, as good as a season as we are having, the Vikings are there at 8-2. The Packers are there at 7-3. Of course, we've beaten both of these teams already this season, and we have one more game against each of them. But 8-game winning streak, one of the best seasons the Lions have ever had. And unfortunately, Jeffrey, those usurpers are still there trying to breathe down our necks. And it's, it'd be nice. You would expect that 9-1, 8 straight wins, like you'd be just cruising along and you'd be out there in front with like nobody behind you. But they're just there lurking behind us, Jeffrey. They can't let us have nice things.
They're like a Viking man lurking. But they scare me the most. I think the Packers are a little bit too up and down for, at least at this point, for as far as like my fear rankings. But yeah, they're keeping clip, and they certainly deserve. They've been playing good football, but it's good to be king though while it lasts.
Absolutely. All right, Jeffrey. Well, there is just one segment left in our show here, Jeffrey, and that is our champs and chumps selection from this previous week. Jeffrey, why don't we start out with your champ of the week here for week 11?
There's a lot to choose from with how thoroughly we dominated Jacksonville, but I'm actually going to this week give it to Jared Goff. Bounce back from 5 picks last game. We pulled out the win because we're a good team, but Jared Goff did look a little rattled there, especially after throwing all those interceptions. You definitely don't want to take risks when you've already thrown 4 or 5 picks kind of thing. But he came back at it this week and just had a kind of a goldfish memory, just like, let's just burn that tape. Let's just go out there and be super efficient again and do your thing. So I got to give it to Jared Goff.
I like that pick. I like that pick a lot. And you're right, Jeffrey. There is just a lot of options to choose from in this game. I think it is a tough one. I got to give an honorable mention because I just heard this nickname for the duo, and I think I like it. Smash and Grab for David Branch and Kirby Joseph. I kind of like that duo nickname there. So we have Sonic and Knuckles, or Rhythm and Blues, and or Rhythm and Brews. Sorry, for Montgomery and Gibbs, and then Smash and Grab for Branch and Joseph. There, that's pretty good. But I think it's got to go to the Sun God, man. 11 receptions, 161 yards, 2 tutties. That's a pretty spectacular performance there that we saw from Amon-Ra St. Brown in this game. So, Jamison Williams was also pretty spectacular for 4 receptions for 124 yards and a TD, especially with him coming back from this was really I think his first strong performance since he came back from the suspension. So it's good to see him get back into the swing of things. And, at one point in time, Jeffrey, he was in the top 5 for receiving yards for the league. So him putting up 124 here against Jacksonville, a little bit of getting back to form for him as well. Just like, Jared Goff rebounded after his tough game last week. All right, Jeffrey, my chump of the week, and we already talked about them a little bit, but is the Atlanta Falcons. Again, like they have every, I guess my favorite part about the Detroit Lions has been the fact that underneath Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes, more often than not, they've capitalized on their opportunities. And so when I look at the Atlanta Falcons and I look at all this opportunity they've had between the draft pick they miss, obviously we don't know what Michael Penix's career is going to look like in the NFL. But at this point in time, it looks like they missed on that opportunity and using that first round pick to draft him where they did instead of drafting someone that could help this team immediately, especially after they paid all that money to Kirk Cousins to come in and be the starting quarterback. With all the injuries that are going on with Tampa Bay, like this is a season where Tampa Bay, if ever were healthy, could certainly challenge them very easily for this NFC South title. But like the Panthers suck. The Saints have looked better the last 2 games, but have certainly not been great on the season. Tampa Bay's beat up. Like you have every opportunity to come out and stake your claim for this division, and you just keep effing it up. And so I'm going with the Falcons. It's got to be frustrating to be one of their fans because it feels great on the opposite side of things to be a Lions fan, have all these opportunities and see us actually do them. So I know being on the other side, having all these opportunities and failing to achieve them, it's got to be frustrating.
Yeah, that 28-3 Super Bowl broke that team. Broke that franchise.
The mental has never recovered. All right, Jeffrey, who do you have as your chump of the week?
My chump of the week, lots to choose from, but I'm going to have to go with Jerry Jones.
Gonna kick a horse while he's down, huh?
I mean, yeah. Yes, I am gonna kick a horse while he's down. This horse has been yapping way too long. He considers himself the best GM in the league, yet when he's in an all-in season, you bring back the corpse of Ezekiel Elliott to be kind of like your marquee off-season attribution here. Now, I know the injury to Dak Prescott is not his fault, but like, look at what else is around him. They were not doing good when he was in the game, and their offensive line is not a strength anymore. They finally got that CeeDee Lamb deal done, but outside of CeeDee Lamb, like who else is there, kind of thing. Like they've got no weapons. They've got a couple of key pieces on defense, but like that's talent, and the defense itself as a whole is not doing well. And I mean, he is the Cowboys, and like he's getting exactly what he put into this team over this year. I think he's got a kind of a conflated view of where he thinks the Dallas Cowboys are.
Yeah, do you think obviously having well, I'm trying to think what is the Washington Commanders football Dan Quinn, having Dan Quinn leave as the defensive coordinator, do you think that really cuz they
Um,
brought in Mike Zimmer who is another guy who's considered to be a very talented defensive coach,
mhm.
but it really does seem like losing Dan Quinn has had a huge impact on that defense.
Yeah, I agree. And when you lose like somebody like that, you expect some changes, right? You expect probably a downturn in productivity, especially if they're new, installing a new system, that kind of thing. But yeah, the Cowboys, they looked good last year at many points in time, but they just didn't do enough to kind of mitigate, one, the loss of Dan Quinn, and two, really the loss of talent of where they were like 5 to 6 years ago, which they're not.
Yeah, they used to have for the longest time one of the best offensive lines in the NFL, and I mean they still have Zach Martin, but it does feel like they lost that emphasis of building from the trenches out. Not that they don't have some talented guys on the defensive side, in Micah Parsons and or not Dexter Lawrence,
Deron Bland.
Ron Bland in the secondary. Is it Dallas Cowboys? What's the other defensive
Micah
lineman's
Parsons.
name? Ricky got Mika Parsons. I get them confused with because they're Sexy Dexy, but Sexy Dexy is with the Giants.
Oh yeah,
Who
yeah.
is the other? He might not even be on here because he might be here. Demarcus Lawrence, who's on
Oh
IR.
yeah.
Demarcus Lawrence, not see. I get Dexter and Demarcus. I get them
Oh yeah, yeah,
confused.
yeah.
But so they do have talent up there. It's just you know it just especially on the offensive line doesn't seem like they've spent the time to really make sure that they're investing in the talent there to continue to solidify themselves as one of the best offensive lines, which hopefully right now that's definitely been a strength for the Detroit Lions. So obviously this is future state Lions, but hopefully we can see them continue to do a good job of bringing in younger players to make sure that we um, like that we don't lose supremacy over that, because I think that's certainly a big part of the success we've been having here with the Lions. Obviously, Penei Sewell, Taylor Decker, uh, Frank Ragnow, and I think probably the guy who's most likely to move on the soonest, just because of all the injuries he's had recently, is Frank Ragnow. So, and he has been a huge part of this team and that offensive line. So. That's probably the piece we're going to have to find a replacement for the soonest. So it'll be interesting to see if Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell can do a better job than the Cowboys, who were a franchise known for having a solid offensive line, can do a better job of getting those pieces in there to keep them at the top.
Yeah,
Harder to stay, it's easy to get to the top, really hard to stay there. So
that's right.
it'll be
Unless you're the
interesting to
Kansas City
see.
Chiefs.
That's true. They just keep on chugging along. And even though they have a loss, like that might be their only one on the season. We don't know. We don't know. But it'll be interesting to find out. And hopefully, I mean, if they do only have one loss heading into the last week for that Super Bowl, hopefully it's the Lions that are on the other side, and we can give them that second one, Jeffrey.
Yeah,
That'd feel pretty good.
we would have been able to beat them last year in that Super Bowl for sure.
I think so. Would have done better than San Francisco. They didn't have the heart, man. Didn't have the heart.
Nope.
But another victory here for the Lions, Jeffrey. 9-1. Our focus now shifts. We stay in the AFC South, going from the Jaguars now to the Colts. You get to take on Anthony Richardson and company. We'll talk about that game on Sunday, Jeffrey. But any concerns for you as we look to hopefully improve to 10-1, double-digit wins?
No, I look
before
for us
Thanksgiving?
I expect us to kind of take care of business and finish the sweep of the AFC South and just kind of put down another team out of their misery as a tune-up game for hopefully a Thanksgiving win to get 11 wins.
Yeah, and certainly, two great opportunities here. Two teams that the Lions should beat. And so far this season, they've done a great job of beating those teams. So I know Dan Campbell has this team focused with that end goal being the Super Bowl, and hopefully we continue to ride. And as we continue to do that, hopefully we can minimize the injuries, because not super concerned. I think we're still in a good spot, but looking at the names that are on IR at this point, yes, if we do make a Super Bowl run, some of them have the potential to make it back, but we are starting to see some impactful names on that injury report for the Lions, Jeffrey, and it's painful. But I think certainly that helps. It does seem to help motivate the team too, because they're coming out here trying to win for these guys who have been a big part of what this team's been building. So, but it'd be great if we can see Anzalone and potentially Hutchinson back out there, because I did see that he started walking in the pool.
Yeah,
have them back for the Super Bowl. That'd be crazy.
That's crazy that he's walking already. I feel like I'd be in the bed already. I'd be in the bed, be like, oh, my leg just broke in half. Everybody, I'm gonna just gonna sit it out for a while.
I think I would be like really into like milk and milkshakes for a while. I'd be like, no, we need to grow these bones strong.
Yeah, right. I'm gonna drink a gallon of milk every day.
Just have an IV of it. Just get it straight into me. All right, everybody. Well, we want to thank everybody for tuning in today. Again, we're coming live to you on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. I know on YouTube, the last time I checked, I think we were up to 64 subscribers, Jeffrey. So making great progress towards our goal of 100. But if you do enjoy the show and want to help the channel grow, the best way to do so is to like, follow, and subscribe. Any one of those that you want to do. So if you are on YouTube and would like to help us reach that 100 goal, again, we're at 64, so we're getting really close. So we definitely appreciate your support. And then you can also catch us on Spotify in podcast format, and then also on Instagram and TikTok as well. So however you like to digest your Lions Grid content, we have a number of different options out there for you. And again, I very much appreciate you taking the time to listen to me and Jeffrey here talk Detroit Lions and NFL, and we'll be back on Sunday to talk about the Colts and the Lions, Jeff.
All right. Yeah, everybody, thank you all. Have a great night.
And if anyone is traveling early for, I know we have Thanksgiving coming up here in the States soon, so if you are traveling, safe travels, and we'll catch you on Sunday. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.